everyone, Monique here. I hope you're all doing great. I wanted to talk to you today about articulating your value as a leader. And this is a common theme that's coming up in coaching sessions. So I'll be coaching leaders and they will say to me that they don't feel valued, they don't feel acknowledged for their skills, their strengths, and their accomplishments. It's a valid concern. And then as I coach them and ask a few more questions, I find that they themselves cannot articulate their strengths, their skills, and their value and their accomplishments. So the question is, if you as a leader cannot articulate your own value, how can you know that other people see that value? And how can you explain that to them? And how can they acknowledge you and appreciate you for the value that you bring to the workplace? So that also is a valid question. So what I am doing in coaching sessions when this comes up is that I talk with my clients and we find ways for them to articulate their strengths, their value, and their accomplishments. And when they really think about it, first they say to me, well, I don't really know how to explain what I've accomplished. How do you do that? How do you weave that kind of information into conversations without sounding like you're bragging, without sounding like you want all the acknowledgement and your team shouldn't have any acknowledgement? How do you really say those things to senior leaders, to upper management, to your manager? How do you put that in, even in a resume or on a LinkedIn profile, so that people reading that information can really understand the value that you bring to the table? So the exercise that I do with my leaders in coaching sessions when this topic comes up is that we put together accomplishment statements. Now, accomplishment statements have been used for decades when it comes to creating resumes, crafting resumes, but they haven't often been used in the workplace to help someone weave the information into a conversation. So the exercise that I go through is helping my leaders create accomplishment statements that can be used in conversations, in interviews, in resumes, in LinkedIn profiles. And also, the accomplishment statements help that person really become familiar with the languaging that they need to use when they're speaking about themselves. Many people are not comfortable articulating their value. They just don't know how to say it. They're not comfortable with it. Accomplishment statements help them to build their confidence level so that they can talk about themselves in a way that is professional and not in a bragging sort of way. So here's how we do this. I have them start a spreadsheet, just open up a spreadsheet, label it accomplishment statements. And then in our coaching sessions, we do this as what I call working sessions, where we're actually creating these statements together. But an accomplishment statement needs to start with a verb, so an action word, like initiated, developed, managed, led, something like that is the way that the statement needs to start. And then the statement needs to be very brief and concise. So I try to get my clients to do it in one sentence, but sometimes it takes two sentences or maybe one longer sentence. And it has to be linked to a metric. So if you say that you have trained so many people during your career, you want to try to list how many people you've trained groups of 50 or more people, initiated 10 training programs over the course of 2 months, saving $10,000 in revenue, you want to try to link this to a metric of how many, how long, how often, how much money you saved, how much money you brought in, something so that you can show the impact of what you did. And that's the key here, is to show the impact. So this takes some thought, and that's why we do this in working sessions with me kind of guiding the session, because people don't realize the impact they have had in the workplace until we start having these discussions. And sometimes they have to go back and look at data, pull information to try to remember the impact that they've had. And once they realize that and put it in writing, they are amazed at how they have really contributed to the growth of their organization in one way or another. And then these statements, which are in a spreadsheet, so we just keep creating statements until we run out of things that they've done, but I take them all the way through their career, and I try to jog their memory about, have you trained? How many projects have you completed? What other things have you done? How many people have you mentored during your career? I take them all the way through and try to really get them thinking. So they have a whole list in a spreadsheet of these accomplishment statements. Then what we do is they can be plugged into a resume if that's what the person wants to do. So then we rework their resume. They can be plugged into their LinkedIn profile if they want to update that. If they're trying for a promotion, or if they have to complete their mid-year self-assessment or their end-of-year self-assessment for their performance evaluation, now we've got some tangible statements linked to metrics that they can put into these documents. And then it gets them comfortable talking about themselves. So then sometimes in sessions we will role play so that they're comfortable weaving that information into a conversation that does not sound like they're bragging about themselves, but showing that they have truly contributed to the value that they bring to the organization. And once they have these statements in a spreadsheet, I consider it a living, breathing document. They can alter the statements, they can add to the document, they really can use it in whatever way they want. But the bottom line is that this builds their confidence so that they start to acknowledge themselves first for the value that they bring. Once you can acknowledge yourself and truly believe that you have brought value, then you can articulate that to other people. And that's the important thing, is being able to articulate your own value. So here's my challenge to you. I really challenge you to think about the things that you've accomplished in your career, even the slightest thing, and link it to some kind of a metric. And then start making a list of those statements. And at first it can be just a rough draft of a list. And in my coaching sessions, then we always go back through and we clean it up. And sometimes we add to it, or we make it shorter or more concise. But just start with a rough draft for yourself. Start all the way back in the beginning of your careers, whatever you can remember, and start listing things out. And remember to start with an action word, so a verb about how you've started out in your accomplishments. And once you have that list, you can use it for many things, but most of all, it'll build your confidence level. So I hope this tip helps. And if you have any questions about it, you know how to reach me. Bye.